Welcome to the Jerry Ratcliffe Show. Chris Graham here with Jerry Ratcliffe. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Jerry, Virginia with a surprisingly thrilling basketball game win last night over Virginia Tech. I say that because there was a lot of offense in that game. I'm not sure if Tony Bennett's too happy about all the Virginia Tech offense, but Virginia, a 78-68 win over the Hokies, and Virginia putting the ball in the hole pretty well of late as well. So what are some of your thoughts after seeing that display last night?
Yeah, I mean, how many times we've seen games where Virginia and its opponent both shot well over 50% for the entire game. It was a lot of offense, and one thing that Tony said struck me pretty well is that Tech, with a healthy Hunter Couture, puts a lot of pressure on you to score because they're going to score. And so you better score.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was all night long. Virginia got off to a quick start, but Tech caught it quickly, and it was a battle. Even though Virginia at times had a 9-10 point advantage, Tech was always hanging around and stayed as close as they could. And this Tech team, I was on a radio show with somebody earlier this week, and I said, they were thinking that there's nobody in the ACC that's going to, he thought there was only 2 or 3 teams capable of winning the ACC title. And Tech has dug themselves into a deep hole, but I said there's a lot of teams out there who can jump up and bite you. And don't take it for granted that Clemson, because they were 7-0 at the time, is going to run away with it, because there's just too many good teams out there who can get you. Granted, there are a few bottom feeders out there, but this Tech team with Couture is dangerous, I think, and they're going to beat some people that they couldn't beat without him. And so I think people should be very leery if they're going to play the Hokies, particularly if they're going to play in Blacksburg, as long as Couture stays healthy.
Yeah, that team was 11-1 and ranked before he got hurt. They've lost 6 straight now, including last night. But last night they lost on the road to a top 10 team. So, Couture looked good. He had 11.7 assists, 4 of 8 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, and it just kind of spaced things out, kind of like how Ben Vanderplas spaces things out for Virginia. Couture may have only had 11 points, but his presence was definitely a difference maker for Virginia Tech. I love the admission from Tony Bennett postgame last night. He actually said, "Rarely will you hear me say this, but we had to score." That's Tony Bennett does not like having to say those kind of things.
Exactly.
That's a huge, that's the biggest compliment he can probably give to anybody, an opposing coach, to Mike Young, that he had to score his team had to score to be able to win that game last night.
Yeah. And those two coaches really like each other. I think they have great respect for one another, and they should. They're both excellent coaches and good guys. But yeah, Virginia had to score, and did they? They had 5 guys in double figures, and of course one of them was one of our favorite guys, Kihei Clark, who had 20 and 5 assists, 1 turnover, and was just tore it up. Made some baskets I didn't think anybody his size could possibly make it down in the lane, which we've become accustomed to now. But people who haven't seen him play, it must blow their minds. It would have been fun sitting with Stephon Curry and Ty Jerome and Draymond Green last night at the game. Some of the Warriors were at the game, for those of you who may have missed it. And it would have been interesting to hear their thoughts, to see their reaction to Kihei twisting and turning and manipulating himself down through the lane and scoring over guys that are 6 inches taller than he is.
It was actually Moses Moody that was with Ty and
is that who it was? I thought
that's who it was. Yeah, a former Arkansas guard. And I know Kihei was asked about it after the game. He was one of the two players came back from Virginia to the media room after the game. What was like playing in front of Steph Curry, and Kihei's understated anyways. Yeah, it was a little nerve wracking, but I thought now. So of course, good numbers from Reese Beekman, 11 points, 7 assists. And he had that thunderous dunk at the end of the first half.
Yeah,
everybody out of their seats.
Brought Steph Curry out of his seat.
He got Curry out of his seat too. Yeah. And I saw the highlight of that. But I thought overall, if you're talking about we're playing, okay, there were also NBA scouts in attendance last night. I saw that there were scouts. The Clippers had a couple scouts there. I think it was Detroit and the Knicks maybe. And you're also, but sitting right there courtside is Steph Curry, the 2-time MVP, 4-time NBA champion, on the short list for GOAT. In NBA annals. I think, gosh, I know Kihei and the Key haters are going to say Chris Graham has once again lost his mind. I think Kihei played himself into a summer camp invite, maybe a training camp invite with the way he played last night. Because, he attacked the paint. He got to the rim. He made 5 layups. He had 2 threes. He had 5 assists, played great defense. He picked the pocket and got another layup just like he's done a few times this year. I think doing that in front of Steph Curry's going to go back and talk to somebody in Golden State's front office and say, we got to get that guy at least in practice with us and see what he can do.
Yeah, he's a 5-year starter, essentially, at the highest level of college basketball. And there's the very little he hasn't done. He's a solid player on both ends of the court. He's a warrior. He doesn't back down from anything. He's got skill. I think he's earned at least an opportunity to show what he can do against that kind of competition, and I hope somebody gives him a chance. I really do. I think he's very deserving, and who knows? He might surprise some people. Look at Muggsy Bogues, for goodness sake, and he's Kihei towers over Muggsy Bogues, I think.
Well, and Virginia, I've noticed, is listing in the, Eric Bacher is listing, the sports information guy for basketball, is now listing Kihei as 5'10". So apparently, in the last 5 years, he's grown an inch. But they're trying to do what they can to get him closer to 6 feet tall, without us noticing. But Tony was only 5'11", and Tony was a shooting point guard. And played in the NBA for 3 years and would have played longer if not for that knee injury. So, it's the kind of thing where, he's 5'9", and the game is what it is. But who knows? Ty had to have something to tell Steph Curry last night to get him to, charter a jet to fly to Charlottesville, fly to Philadelphia, or Boston, where they're playing tonight. Instead of having a night off to kind of rest and relax and recuperate. Hey, let's go see a game at JPJ. Ty had to me, he had to have an ulterior motive. Who knows? He may have been telling Steph about this guy who badgered me in practice to a point where I threw a ball at his head one time. And you got to see him in person. And then Kihei has that game in front of him. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I imagine he probably wanted to get a look at Beekman too, and
that too.
He certainly didn't disappoint. He had 11 points, 7 assists, no turnovers, 1 steal, 1 block shot. Made 4 out of 10 shots overall, 1 out of 3 from the arc. And just showed, his basketball IQ, I think, in a very heated game. So, and my goodness, Franklin certainly didn't hurt himself either. He was 6 of 9 from the floor, 15 points, 1 assist, no turnovers. So Virginia's backcourt opened a lot of eyes last night, I think, playing against a pretty good defense.
Franklin is averaging 15.4 points a game in his last 7 games since that little rough stretch he went through. 15.4 points. He mentioned 6 of 9 last night, 2 of 3 from 3. He's been shooting 45% from 3 in his last 7. And and they're using him and really everybody a little differently. I know it was talked about at the postgame last night. The little 3-man action that they're running with Vander Plas, who's getting in, he's starting now at the 5. And the screens they're setting, whether it's Vander Plas and Franklin setting screens for each other down low to get the ball in the post, and then one floating out to the 3-point line, or if it's Vander Plas and Gardner. Tony is, some fans have been saying for years he needed to add some more wrinkles to his offense, the mover blocker as the base. It's been around for a while. Some teams really play against it well. He added some things earlier in the season that created some pick and roll action, high pick and roll action for Beekman and Clark to get in the lane. And now this little triangle kind of stuff that he's working, they've been using that with great success the past few games. And Vander Plas has done well with it. Franklin's done well with it. Gardner had a solid night last night, 12 points, 5 of 6 shooting. This is at least for the last 3 games, has been an offensive juggernaut, these Virginia Cavaliers.
Yeah. Is that the same old Phil Jackson triangle that he used to run with the Bulls and the Lakers?
There's some similarities. They're setting more screens than the old triangle offense of the Lakers and Bulls with Jackson. But there's the concept of 3 guys and then having 2 guys in either corner, kind of to draw out the possibility. If you overcommit to the post, those guys in the corners are open for threes, and you got Clark on one side and usually McNeely or Franklin on the other. It's really using the personnel well.
Yeah, and it puts the defense into an awkward position because it's hard to stop, really, if you got guys who can score at each of those points of the triangle, and Virginia does. So credit to Tony Bennett for figuring something else out to throw at opponents, because you're going to need everything you can get to win the ACC this year and go beyond, go deep into the tournament. And that's just another thing that people hadn't had to deal with before.
He's got lineup flexibility like he had in 2019.
Yeah.
When I remember there would be times you would see Jack Salt sub out and Kihei Clark sub in for him. 5'9" for 6'11". But Caden Shedrick's only played 9 minutes the last 2 games. Francisco Cafaro's not played in the last 2, and in fact, in 3 of the last 5, he's got DNPs. But he said last night, "Hey, those guys need to be ready. They need to still, keep practicing hard because there are going to be matchups that those guys are going to be back in for the 20-25 minutes a game." So, but Vander Plas gives him flexibility. Franklin, now that he's shown he can play in the post a little bit, not necessarily as he's playing a small 4 certainly, but he's got some guys who give him that flexibility, like we saw with that group that had DeAndre Hunter and Braxton Key, who were so flexible, could play positions 1 through 5. He's got some guys this year who can do the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and had Leonard Hamilton started his 7'4" guy down in Tallahassee last weekend, Tony was prepared to go with a bigger lineup to start with and see what would happen. And Leonard elected not to go that route, so he was able to stick with the smaller lineup. And we expected they would do that against Tech last night because Tech's not the biggest lineup in the world. So it'll be interesting to see how long he can continue to do that. Maybe again at Wake Forest this weekend.
Yeah, Carolina comes to mind as a team, and of course that's the program it worked against the first time, but without Armando Bacot, who got injured. But Carolina still had some bigs in the game who were pretty effective in the first half of the game last week. Yeah, a lot of college teams. The game has gotten away from the Ralph Sampson, Patrick Ewing era, Alonzo Mourning, where you had a big guy that you fed the ball in the post. And that guy did a lot of damage. Now a lot of teams start, 6'8" guys at center, and that 6'8" center shoots threes. I mean, we might likely see Vander Plas out there more often than not. But then when there needs to be, I'm thinking Purdue. If Virginia ever plays Purdue, if they see them in the NCAA tournament, which Virginia fans think, hey, that's in the Final Four when we'll finally see Purdue. You see that 7-4 guy, you're probably not going to start Vander Plas against him right away. But other than that, against most college teams, I think that the lineup that Tony's had the last few games that's working really well probably works against most teams.
And I think Tony prefers to play that way, really, if he had his choice. And he's talked about that for years, that, college basketball is trending away from the really huge lineups that we used to see. And, Duke had a lot of success over the years, back when they were really hot and winning national titles with a smaller lineup to a degree. And I just think that Tony would rather go that route if he can. And I think the way college basketball is today, it kind of affords him to use that philosophy, and he's taking advantage of it. And it's been fun to watch, really.
It is fun. And Steph Curry's Golden State Warriors, those 4 championships without a center. They had a 7-footer for at least one of those, Kevin Durant, but he's a 7-foot, basically big guard. So that's where the game is. And Tony is definitely getting out there on that forefront. So I haven't looked at Wake Forest. I know just anecdotally, just because of following the scores, they've got, they had a big win this week. They beat Clemson at home. They've got a double-digit win at home over Duke. Without doing the investigation that I'll do tomorrow, Virginia fans are probably pretty well aware this Wake Forest team in Winston-Salem is a pretty good team.
Yeah, they're always hard to beat, and doesn't matter who the coach is, and they do have a good coach, but they're always hard to beat in Winston-Salem. It doesn't matter what kind of team they have. They've always given Virginia fits for the most part. And I haven't looked at them yet either. I'll do that tonight. But they're the first team to knock off Clemson this year, and I thought somebody was going to do that. I'm still not sold on Clemson. How many times have we seen them get off to hot starts? And I know this team is a little different. Brad Brownell does a really good job with his talent, and but I figured somebody was going to get them pretty soon. And somebody was talking about how the schedule favors them. They don't have as brutal a schedule as some of the other teams do remaining, but they still got to go through the gamut. There's still a little bit more than half a season left as of this coming weekend. So I think the ACC is there for the taking, and the way Virginia's playing, why not? They're one game behind the Tigers, and I think Virginia's poised and in a good place right now. The way they're playing,
way they're playing right now, yeah. 6-2 overall in the ACC. That game, the Wake game, is 2:00 on Saturday. It's down in Winston-Salem. So look to Jerry's preview tonight and tomorrow. I'll have a preview tomorrow as well, looking at Wake Forest team and kind of what Virginia fans can expect when we see the two teams match up on Saturday. Jerry, some football news. It's the kind of stuff that we talk about this a lot, Jerry. That the seasons never really end. Football season was over for a couple of months ago for Virginia, but we actually have some news to jump into here with. First, maybe we'll talk about the new offensive line coach for Virginia. Finally, after the departure of Garrett Tujague last month to head back down to NC State to reunite, and head to NC State, I should say, to reunite with Robert Anae, who's now the offensive coordinator down there. Virginia had that job open for a while, an uncomfortable amount of time for some people. But Terry Heffernan, most recently of Stanford with an NFL pedigree, is a new O-line coach at UVA. Yeah,
he worked a little bit with the Buffalo Bills before going out to Stanford. And, of course, that long ride at Stanford came to an end when they fired their coach in December. We kind of saw that coming. They had a nice program for a long time out there and were contenders in the Pac-12 for several years. We don't know a lot about him. He hasn't been introduced to the media yet. I understand he's already out on the road recruiting for Virginia, as all the coaches are right now, trying to get a jump on the 2024 class, which I'm told in the state of Virginia is pretty solid. And certainly Virginia needs to make some inroads there. I did a story this week on what the impact of Dre Bly getting fired at Carolina might have on Virginia recruiting in the state. And I was talking to Matt Hatfield, who was Virginia Prep's editor down there, and he agrees, and I'm sure you do as well, that this is a golden opportunity for the Cavaliers and the Hokies, really, to regain some strength in that territory. Bly was obviously from Chesapeake and was an All-American, played in the NFL, and came back and joined Mack Brown's staff before he was let go a week ago, and dominated recruiting in that area pretty much, at least against state of Virginia teams, and drew a lot of talent out of there. So it's a chance for Virginia to get back on the recruiting map down there, and hopefully they will. Tony Elliott told us back on signing day in December that by the time he got here last year, and hired a staff, that when they went to visit kids down there and around the state, that they were essentially too late, that all those guys were too far down the road in the recruiting process to consider Virginia at that point. So now they've had just as much chance as anybody to dig in and go for some talent in the 757 and around the state. And speaking of recruiting, they did get a transfer portal commitment this past week, and Tavon Kyle, who's a 5'11" cornerback from Iowa State. I guess he probably played with Brock Purdy.
I guess so. Yeah.
Originally from Valdosta, Georgia, and a great program down in Valdosta. They have good football down there, right on the border of Florida and Georgia. He chose Virginia over Purdue and East Carolina. He was a 3-star in high school. Played in 32 games, was honorable mention all Big 12 in 2019 and 20. Don't know exactly what happened to him after that, but he joined Cameron Kelly from Carolina, who came to UVA through the portal from North Carolina last week. He's a Chesapeake kid. I think we talked about him last week. So this kid at least has some experience, 372 snaps at Iowa State, and he had some decent Pro Football Focus numbers, if I recall. So much needed cornerback. Don't know that he's a Fentrell Cypress type, but he does fill a void for Virginia at that position.
He had a really good 2020. When I looked at his numbers on Pro Football Focus, he allowed 23 receptions on 45 targets. His NFL passer rating against was 64.1, which is a really good number. I don't know what happened to him in 2021. I could not figure out. He didn't play much in 2021.
He might have been hurt, but there was nothing to indicate that.
No, yeah, I kept everything I could think of in Google to look up injury and Tavon Kyle. Couldn't find anything. Yeah. Last year's numbers were not as good as they were in 2020, but hey, he's a Power 5 experienced cornerback. He's played for 4 years, 3.5 years. He doesn't have the Fentrell Cypress numbers or the Anthony Johnson numbers. Virginia's losing a couple of really good ones there, but gosh, he's got P5 experience, and so that's you need a guy that you can plug in, and he'll be a plug-in guy right away and be able to give him a lot of snaps. So that's big news there. And so the offensive line coach situation's figured out. Tony Elliott had said last month at his signing day presser they still needed 3 offensive linemen. So I'm sure that's why Heffernan is out there working the beat, trying to, and not just for 2024, but probably trying to figure out some 2023 transfer guys he can get to come in. The room just needs some bodies.
Yeah.
And the cornerback room has another body, which is important. So there's some progress on the football side of things. Gosh, Jerry, I'm thinking through as I'm thinking through some other stuff. The baseball team, top 20 in 3 of the 6 national polls that are out so far. The other 3 aren't out. So the 3 that are out have Virginia all in the top 20, somewhere between 15 and 20 in the polls. So we're not that far from baseball season starting, about a month away. Hard to think that that's the case.
Yeah, I think we'll probably be talking to Brian O'Connor pretty soon. And on the basketball recruiting front, I wanted to mention that Tony Bennett, I think, for the first time in his 14 years here, I may be wrong about this, but I think it's right. He has offered a 9th grader scholarship, and he's a state kid. I haven't had a lot of state kids in the program in a while. So a kid named Latrell Almond, he's a 6'8", 215-pound center from John Marshall High School in Richmond. Moved up here from Southern Pines, North Carolina, just outside the Pinehurst area, I guess, over the summer. And he plays for Team Loaded 2026. It's hard to think in those numbers. Class of 2026, but this kid, they just destroyed some team in a tournament in DC back in June, and apparently there was a lot of college coaches there. And immediately after the game, I think Georgetown, Rutgers, I think Rutgers might have been the first, Texas A&M, NC State, and somebody else jumped on him right after the game, offered him scholarships, and the kid was talking about how his life changed in a matter of 2 hours. But I'm told that he's just a very uncommon kid for a 9th grader. I mean, he was offered before he was actually in the 9th grade by these schools, so that's that tells you something. Apparently, he has an incredible basketball IQ. He just moves so well, understands the game, is a good shooter, a good defender, physical already. I'm sure he'll grow if he's 6'8" as a 9th grader. Don't know how much, but for Team Loaded, he plays along with a 6'11" kid, Cozy, and I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Medju before. No, that couldn't be right. I have no idea, but he's
a big kid. He's working with a big kid.
He's from Virginia Beach. I do know.
Okay.
Apparently, they run a very effective high-low offense with those two. So, I think we'll be hearing a lot about this kid over the next couple of years, and I guess it's good that it's hard to imagine offering 9th graders, but I think this kid might be the exception, and the reason Tony Bennett jumped on him early. I guess it was Bronco that told us a couple of years ago, and I know it's not basketball, but he was saying that, some of these kids now, if you don't offer them in the 7th or 8th grade, they take it as an insult, and you're already out of the picture. So I guess you have to get in early.
You got to get it on the record, man. Just
get it. You don't get in.
You don't get in. Yeah. Hey, it's a placeholder. Like, hey, I was there. I was there when you were in the 9th grade. That's wow. That is something. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if he's getting offers already, he's going to get 65 Power 5 offers or 65 Power 5 schools.
Probably.
You don't want to be the one to leave out. So to be left out. So
especially if he's in your backyard.
And he's in your backyard. Yeah. And I mean, you got to. God, you really. Especially for Virginia, you can't just project his basketball, but you got to project his academics too. He's probably taking algebra. He's got some stuff to take before he gets to college. So, that's the hard part of projecting. You're thinking about all the stuff he's going to go through the next 3 or 4 years. So that's
absolutely
that's interesting. What else, Jerry, is on your mind as we're maybe moving towards wrapping up the show?
Really not much. We'll just be keeping up with the hoops and the football recruiting, and as we start to delve our way into spring sports. Not sure that we're all ready for that yet, but I guess some of the fans are. Kind of complicates our schedules and lives, obviously, but that's about it. I do want to thank our sponsors, a bevy of them. The Good Feet Store, Jonathan Cotton. I think I think we talked last week about how he sponsored some stuff at the Carolina game. What a good guy he is. I mean, he's everywhere too. I saw some pictures of him. I think he was taking pictures of Dick Vitale and somebody at the before that game. I think he might have been there last night with Curry and those guys. I'm not. I think he might have nestled himself into that a photo or two there. I'm not sure, but
I wonder how they got those good seats. Yeah, they got really good seats.
They were over there next to John Grisham, right?
Yeah.
Which we're going to have John on here sometime this month. He said he could do one this month, so we'll have him back on. Maybe next week, depending on his schedule. He's a busy dude. But I wanted to thank the Good Feet Store and Jonathan Cotton. What good people they are. If you have any kind of foot, walking, running problems, go see them. Discomfort with your hips, knee, feet, ankles, etc. They have arches that will support your feet and straighten out your discomfort. And I can testify to that. They've helped me. And also Ragged Mountain Running Shop. Mark and Cynthia Lorenzoni, great people. They've got all the shoes and running gear you need for when Good Feet straightens out your foot or running, walking problems. You can go over there and get some equipment at Ragged Mountain. The Aberdeen Barn, great people. Best steakhouse in Virginia, wonderful people. We appreciate their support. And UVA Orthopedics out there, their new facility on Ivy Mountain Road. And our newest sponsor, Rhoback, RHOBACK. Got their hat on right here. It's after you see the doggy up here. It's after a dog, I think, from South Africa. And I got on one of their I think they call these Q-zips. Very comfortable. And I've been wearing some of their clothes the past couple of weeks. I don't want to take them off. They're so comfortable. They're extremely versatile. You can wear them in the office, night out at the basketball game or wherever. They have performance polos. They have performance hoodies. They have a women's line that they've just introduced. So you gals have not been left out. They have great clothes, very attractive clothing for everyone. One of the cool things I like about them is they're based right here in Charlottesville. I think they're one of the fastest growing companies in the United States, Chris. And some former Darden people, I think, are the ones who created this company. So you know that they're on the ball, no question about it. They support college athletics. They signed Kihei Clark, one of our favorite guys, and one of your favorite guys, to NIL package. Also, Baycott down in Carolina, a couple of football players from Notre Dame and Alabama. So they're all over the place. And again, they're growing quickly. So they give you the best fit, the best feel. And all you got to do is go to our website and click on the Rhoback, RHOBACK. You can't miss their logo. Click on it. It gives you a catalog of all their clothing, and it's I love it. They have all kinds of stuff, and I think you will too. And use the code UVA Jerry, and you'll get a generous 20% off of your first order. And you'll be helping us, and you'll be helping Kihei Clark and be helping a great company right here in Charlottesville. It's Wahoo people. So check them out.
A company that helps Jerry Ratcliffe style and profile like he is here on the show today. Last couple weeks, hey, you've been rocking the gear the last couple weeks for the Roback folks. So yeah,
absolutely.
I need to catch up. I need to catch up with your style here. So
we'll get you on there.
I got to get hooked up. I got to get to work here. Yeah. Well, I think that'll wrap us up for the week. Thanks to everyone for listening. Go to jerryratcliffe.com. Go to AugustaFreePress.com for more on UVA athletics. Everyone have a great week.